2020 has been many things, and one of those things has been, unfortunately, the year of fear. So in this episode, we thought to break fear down a little bit and hopefully make it a little less scary.
Welcome to the podcast where it's all about living your love story and making your life and world a story where love wins. My name is Siena.
And my name is Toast. We've been partners in life, love, and music since 2001. Welcome to our podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And you know, we still haven't changed the introduction to our podcast.
And who knows if we will.
I don't think we will. It's
Anyways.
not going to happen. But the content remains the same. This is still about living your love story.
Yes.
And just because it's a love story doesn't mean there's no fear.
Right. And love story doesn't have to mean lovers.
Right. No,
Which
not
we've
at all.
explained 100 times. But anyways, living your love
We're so
story.
exasperated at explaining
living
ourselves.
Your love story is having the intention to grow and to always be moving towards betterment of whatever that means for you, whatever bar you hold for yourself, despite fear. And so we're going to be talking about fear today. I do want to make an announcement that the day this podcast comes out, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Is that on Netflix?
Is on Netflix.
So speaking of fear,
Yay!
happy Halloween season.
That's true. I wonder if kids are going to be coming to the house. No one came last year. And Toast and I were so excited. We bought
All kinds of
Costco.
awful sugary
We bought candy from Costco, right?
Yep.
And we were ready. We were excited. The neighborhood we live in has a ton of kids. Not one child knocked on our door.
Which in itself is a
Not one
scary
child.
thing.
I don't know where they all went.
I know they went to another neighborhood, I guess.
So I don't know what kind of preparation we should make for this year, because I'm thinking the kids are going to all be around. They're not going to some other neighborhood. They're probably going to stay close in.
I thought
be
you and
safer, I think.
I thought you and I already made the decision.
Oh yeah, we did decide that. Yeah, we're not going to do it.
We're going to boycott Halloween. And
But I feel like the kids need it more than ever now. So I'm wondering. I'm rethinking it now.
oh, okay.
I don't know.
So we didn't
But
make a decision.
the danger is that if no one comes, then we're left with all this
Awful sugary
toxicity.
snacks again.
Which is so crazy because yet we'd give it to the kids. Here's some toxicity for you.
And we'd eat some too.
I know, but then like maybe we should get them something
But that's
else.
what Halloween is.
Big toxic fest.
Yeah. That's what all parties are. Is like, yeah, let's toxify ourselves with alcohol and sugar.
All right.
Cheers. Let's talk about fear.
Okay, let's talk about
Let's
fear.
do it.
All right. Okay, so fear. So this year has been scary. A lot of people, a lot of my rainbows and unicorn pals have really done a great job of staying on the lighter side of fear and love and really blasting that light. But I've seen many of them too crack, which is good. Crack that open, you know?
They've cracked. Okay. Okay.
You know, like moments,
Well,
right?
okay.
Which is
right.
good, right?
All
Because we
right.
can't be, you know, how true is rainbows and unicorns?
Exactly.
And
you know, oh my gosh.
I mean,
oh
but
my
I think-
God, I'm about to preach a sermon. I'm
But
gonna
okay.
I'm gonna do it. Stand back.
But
Give me.
Wait, let me clarify though. I do believe in gradients of rainbows and unicorns because I enjoy being in that, holding that perspective that there are gradients of rainbows and unicorns. Okay. And I like being somewhere in the mid gradient of rainbows and unicorns.
Okay.
I enjoy that.
Give me 15 seconds for my sermon.
Go ahead. I'm going to take a sip of drink.
Okay. Life is not a binary. Life
Oh, you
is
just lectured me on this last night. I think you were... Weren't you doing that like right before I went to bed?
It's
I
like
made
that-
a comment and then the lecture came out popping through from my right side.
It's called a sermon, excuse me, not a lecture. life is not a binary. It's a combination of so many different things. The ecosystem, that whole John Muir quote, right? If you pick up one, was it John Muir? Maybe it was Darwin. you pick up one thing in the universe, it's connected to everything else. And
I believe that.
yes. And trying to hold on to the light or the positive only, to
But
me,
I didn't say only. I'm just clarifying.
Yes.
Because
I appreciate that. And I think I understand that about you. I
just
think I understand that about you.
You know,
yes.
that's why I said a gradient, like being somewhere in the middle.
Thank you. Yes, a gradient.
A little bit more leaning on the rainbows and unicorns side, but somewhere in the middle.
To everything, there is a season. So there's an oscillation of moving from the light and then into the gray and then into the dark and back again. And that's just the nature of life itself. It cannot be changed. And our greatest fulfillment lies in moving gratefully in that motion. Okay.
Very good.
Amen. You may
Very
be
good.
seated.
Very good, Toast. Reverend Toast. Pastor Toast. Yeah.
Father Toast. Okay.
Grandpa Toast. Weren't you grumpy grandpa?
Get off my lawn. Kids nowadays.
Anyways, people, if this is their first podcast, they're not going to understand what grumpy
They won't be
grandpa
back.
is. All right. Okay, fear. Let's talk about fear. So, fear has all kinds of definitions that probably a lot of people would pretty much agree on. But the definition that I really like is that fear is something you meet when you are at the border of the reality that you know. When you're at the border of the reality that you know, so when you are at your green growing edge, that's how we also refer to it. When you are growing and you are doing something different, you are facing something, some unknown, new territory, whatever it might be, you know, emotional, actual, whatever it is, even mentally, it can bring about this thing called fear.
Green growing edge. Yes, when you're at your green growing edge, when you're at the edge of the known. Mm-hmm. What's so interesting, and again, this is that whole, how do you say that word? Gestalt, where it's the whole. It's not a binary. It's one and the same. So there's excitement when you're at the edge of the unknown, and that excitement can feel like a positive, exciting, oh, I'm looking forward to, you're kind of giddy because you don't know exactly, but you have this sense of being carried and being supported and being surrounded by helpful presence or helpful energy. And that creates a sense of, you know, like, I'm not scared really of it, I'm excited. But if you're in that same place, but you feel alone, and you don't have a sense of support, you're not connected to any sense of family, then that's when it feels scary and it's unknown. And I think that's the oscillation at that.
All right, thanks for joining the podcast.
On the landscape.
You just gave away our whole...
I did?
Our beautiful summary, yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah,
this is a short podcast.
All right. So anyways, to just back up, let's pretend we didn't hear any of that from Toast.
All right.
But yeah, I thought what you were going to talk about is how fear and excitement both have very similar physical symptoms. You know, there's that your heart races, you get a little bit of butterflies, you're like, you know, you have a little bit of shortness of breath in a way, and it, depending on how you utilize that, you know, whether you're like going, oh my God, I'm so scared, or like, you know what, I'm excited for this. And that's one of the things I think in the octopus book, First Make the Beast Beautiful.
Yeah, that's
I call it the octopus book. It's called First Make the Beast Beautiful.
The cover of the book has a picture of an octopus, so that's why.
By Sarah Wilson. I think in her book, she says, and so instead of saying, you know, oh, I'm scared to do whatever, instead to just start using the language, I'm excited to do that. You know, I'm pretty excited to do that, whatever it is, you know, to shift your frame of mind and perspective around it, to give it a whole new kind of
structure of feeling.
Yeah, instead of the usual, you know, the usual automatic pilot type stuff. All right. Okay, so continuing on with fear. So in general, there tends to be two types of fears, I think, that we experience. But as Toast kind of gave you a little bit of a preview of
Spoiler.
These two things really are one thing. So we will get to that.
Okay.
And you probably know what it is already. But anyways, so one of the fears is like fears of things we might have to do. So these can be fears that come about from things that seem to happen to us. You know, so fear of, oh my God, I have to look for a new job. Or, oh my God, I might lose my job. Or, oh my God, we're going to have to move, or whatever it might be. But fear of things that you might have to do. Then another type of fear is the fear of things you might feel. So this is more of an internal state, where the other one is more externally driven. This one is a more immediate internal state. So things you might feel like, you know, fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of being helpless. But what it comes down to is that it really comes down to, so for both of these types of fears, it really comes down to the fear that you won't be able to handle something. You know, the fear of losing your job. Oh my God, I might lose my job. And the fear about that is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to take care of my family? Fear of starting a new job, you know, or having to look for a new job. You know, oh my God, who's hiring now? Maybe you're thinking about your age and, you know, I'm not going to be able to handle that. Like, how do I handle all of that?
Yeah. And I think on an existential level, I think being able to handle it, like, I think what that means on that existential level is the fear of ceasing to exist as you knew yourself.
Yes.
You're going to have to be a new person. You're no longer a person with this particular job. Right. Now you're a different person who's looking for a job.
And when you cling on and hang on for all dear life, that's kind of when it gets a little bit more ego-y, you know?
Yeah, I think
because the ego is part of that.
Yeah, it's all ego. And honestly,
you know, when you're stuck, when you are really attached to that identity.
And again, going back to the existential thing, this is all really a fear of a kind of death. This is fear of death, because you're going to cease to exist as the person that you know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green growing edge.
Okay. So,
but
two kinds of fear: the fear that you won't be able to handle it.
Yeah, the fear comes down to the fear of not being able to handle it. But what that really comes down to is the fear of being alone in the world, which is what you talked about. The fear of being alone. And so when we are in that space of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to handle it. When it comes down to that, I think something important to remember is that attitude and perspective really comes from feeling like you have to do everything on your own. There is a lack
that it's up to you.
Yeah, there is a lack of this
sense of being supported.
By the universe, by God, by spirit, by life itself.
Right.
So that's one level, but also the real level, the physical level of whoever your support groups are, whatever groups you identify with. And maybe now it might be more than ever, really, if you are on groups online and Zooming and all this kind of stuff. But all of that together and remembering you're part of these groups, and you're part of the universe, and you're part of God and expression and all of that reminds us that we're not alone and that we don't have to do this all by ourselves. And so really, I won't be able to handle that. We can throw that away.
And say that, no, I can't handle it. Is that what you mean?
Well, to say that I'm supported in this. This is my next step, and it's not going to be comfortable, but you know what? I'm supported.
Okay.
Because I know and I trust in this thing called life. I trust that this is my next green growing edge. I trust that this thing that I see so clearly in front of me is the next breadcrumb. I'm going to follow that breadcrumb, and another one will appear, and I will know what to do next, and I'm going to trust in that. And I have my friends here, I have my group here, I have God, I have the universe. So remembering that we're part of this whole spiritual
process
and
that it never
loving
ends.
And this ecosystem is, I think, really important when dealing with fear, when you're at that green growing edge.
Yeah.
Which I think everyone has experienced on so many different levels this year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whether it's the new way of working, whether you've lost your job, whether you're trying to find a new job, whether your kids are now at home and you're homeschooling them. I mean, it's just, and then now going into the election and what things are going to be like maybe after the election, and trying to prepare for how the election could go and all of that stuff. I mean, there's so much growing.
Right. It's kind of like pick a card, any card.
How to live life with a mask.
Yeah.
Right? Like your new routines with that, if all of that really.
We all know.
Yeah.
When you brought this up, I don't know if this is a good time to bring this up in this episode, but when you brought up this topic about fear, it brought to mind something that we saw on, I think it was Instagram Live, and it was AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
She went on Instagram and did an Instagram Live after the news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing had come out. And one of the things that AOC brought up is fear, and about the fact that she said, I feel scared all the time. I am scared a lot. And then she talked about courage and how people will project or will say to her that, but you're so courageous. How do you have so much courage? And the observation she made, which I totally agree with, and I really appreciate her pointing this out, she said that really courage is just the word that we use to describe fear when we're looking at fear in the rearview mirror. Like in the moment when you're just living your life, it's real life, and you're scared. Okay, you're scared.
Yeah.
And you keep going and you do it scared.
Yes.
And then looking back on it, people will point at it and say and describe it as, that was so courageous. Mm-hmm. But that's just the lens and the filter of history, really, and wanting to memorialize something, So I think it's helpful to keep that in mind. I think too the whole thing she said with fear, like keep going part of it. Mm-hmm. I think that's where a lot of us get a bit trapped, is we stop. Yeah, because it's scary. Yeah. And we think that if we don't keep going, it's going to stop the fear.
Yeah, no, but I think it makes it worse, honestly, versus just keep going and working through the fear, going in and despite the feelings of fear, this thing called fear. So how about I end with just a few little statements here?
Okay.
So these are basically what are called the 5 truths about fear.
Okay.
From one of my teachers, Mary Morrissey, who we've talked about a few times. Okay, so number 1, fear will never go away as long as we're growing.
So make friends with fear.
Make fear your friend. Number 2, the only way to get rid of fear is to actually do something about it. So if you are fearful of doing something, the only way to get over that fear is to actually do that something.
That's exciting.
Yep. Number 3, the only way to feel better about yourself is when you are actually growing. Mm-hmm. So if you are feeling kind of stagnant and stuck, you can start to feel a lot better if you put yourself in a position where you know you're growing. Because I think we can get too comfy.
Yeah. Or feel...
That's why comfortable...
I don't know about
is
comfy,
so...
but
comfort is so... It's so tricky, isn't it?
It's relative. It's a relative term, like, because what makes one person comfortable makes another person uncomfortable. It depends on your...
It's not only relative, but it's like, even for just like, if you're just using it for yourself, the things that make you comfortable also tend to be the things that make you feel dissatisfied, really.
Well,
because you don't feel like you're growing anymore, and so you're like, rah, 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 and it's, but you're comfortable.
It's about degrees, though. Like everything in moderation. Like water, that's great. Drink water. But is there such a thing as too much water? Yes. Same thing with exercise. Same thing with sleep. Same thing with learning, even. Like if you are always just pumping into your brain, whether through books or audio or video, studying and learning, and
right.
That's not balanced either. So I think that whole thing of, what was it again? What was the thing that you just read?
What did I... the only way to feel better about yourself is to make sure you're growing, is to continue to grow and seek those opportunities out.
Okay.
Being self-aware, knowing if you are in a place of stagnation, knowing like, okay, you know what? Which one of the things in order to assess that is to look at your discontents and your longings, which we've talked about extensively before.
But even with that, though, it's like to make sure you're always growing. But of course, that involves a self-knowledge and a wisdom and a compassion for oneself, so that your growth is not a compulsive kind of addictive type of, you're trying
in order to feel good about yourself.
Right.
Yeah. That is definitely not how this teacher meant that. Okay, number 4. When you face growth, you face fear. And everyone else faces it in the same way. Everyone who's growing faces fear, faces some kind of fear. So that should help us to feel less alone in that regard. Okay, number 5. Pushing through fear is less frightening than living in helplessness.
Ah, yes.
Pushing through the fear.
And there's that situation of life that we find ourselves in. It's like, there's no one, or there's no situation where it's like, oh, it's all easy. Now finally, if you just had enough money, if you just had the right partner, if you just had the right job, then life would be easy. It's like, nope, nobody gets that. It's there's always going to be a challenge, and it really is the spirit in which you engage with that challenge that makes it feel good, less good, or more good.
But also, too, when you're looking outside of yourself for these external things, it depends, too, like your intention of like the reasons why you want these external things. Like the more money, the more this, the this, the this, the this, the this, and how you really want to feel and how you think that's going to make you feel. And then you realize, oh my God, I thought it was going to make me feel a certain way. And then it doesn't.
I mean, that's...
And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I need 3 houses then. And then I'm going to feel what I thought 2 houses was going to make me feel.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Now we're getting it.
There's so much like internal work. There's so much internal
the culture
work
that we live in, right? The society and the consumer culture that we live in is constantly telling us that. those kinds of messages, like, oh, you need this particular product, or you need these letters after your name in order to feel okay about yourself, in order to consider yourself a success. So anyway, wow, this particular episode
It's all over the place.
Has been all over the place. But I am so grateful. I really believe that at least somebody listening is able to relate. And I really feel a sense of solidarity just with other human beings in giving voice to these kinds of perspectives and experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks. Thanks for having the conversation.
Are you saying thanks to me or the listeners?
I'm saying thanks to you, and I'm also saying thanks to the listeners. Thank you to all the humans.
Yes.
Thank you,
to all the
humans. We are all
right.
part of the same family.
We are. All right. So until next time, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we hope to talk with you soon.
Vote. Make sure your
yes.
friends and your family vote. Okay. Yes. So until next time.
This is Siena.
And this is Toast, as always, inviting you, encouraging you, and loving you as you live your love story.